Alright guys, TechGrabber here today, and I'll recap day 2 of week 3 of the Pro League at the end of the video. To start with, I really wanted to talk about the Maddox, and well, the Maddox in general, more generally, the 1.13 patch that hit yesterday, and the potential implications it's going to have. It's the biggest talking point right now. The gameplay in the background is some arguably nostalgic gameplay of the Maddox from, well, it's a gameplay from a couple of weeks ago, so I hope you guys enjoy that. It's just a 3v3 game battles match. I'll be putting relevant information and stuff on screen as I talk through it, rather than what I normally do, where there wouldn't be any gameplay, so I hope you guys prefer that. We'll have to see how it goes. Regardless, today let's talk about the Maddox. So like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, and let's go through this patch. So firstly, the ICR barely saw any changes at all, so the ICR is still as good as it was. The Sorg is slightly worse. Stock 1 feels pretty damn slow right now. Stock 2 is effectively the new Stock 1, so if you want to feel like the old Stock 1, you've probably got to run both, so it's going to be ungentleman's agreemented in competitive, I would presume. So Stock 2 is probably going to be what the pros are using. They'll probably be using Quick Draw and then Stock 1, Stock 2, and yeah, grip is worse than it was. Personally, I think the Sorg is kind of difficult to control without grip, but I guess I'll get used to it over time. And on the smaller maps, it's definitely still more than viable. So the Sorg really hasn't changed much in terms of its viability in competitive. I think on the smaller maps, it will still dominate the close range engagements, and the long range engagements will still be dominated by the ICR. However, the Maddox is something else right now. So the Maddox, as you can see on screen, I'll bring up the patch notes as they changed it. The increase to the recoil in the first 5 shots is incredibly significant. It really kicks a lot to start with, and I did say in my initial video that, you know, I'd be careful not to overreact initially, which I still think was a valid point because we didn't know how bad this patch was going to be, but it's pretty damn bad. The Maddox, the first 5 shots go all over the place, and even after that, it seems to go more left and right than it did. To be honest, the best thing about the Maddox was the fact that those first few bullets, you could hit them dead on if you hit your first shot, and now that's not really the case anymore. The ELO also makes things a little bit worse, so the red dot is really what you're going to have to use if you still want to use the Maddox right now, which is maybe awkward to some people, but that's the game as it is in its current state. The Maddox is still viable in terms of its time to kill and such, but I really think the recoil is going to make it very, very difficult to use in competitive at all. It's yet to be seen exactly what weapons will be used in competitive. So the way I see it right now, the Sorg and the ICR will stay in their roles. We need a Maddox replacement. Now, whether the Maddox replacement will be another weapon, or whether that will be an increase in the amount of Sorgs and ICRs being used, is yet to be seen. I hope it is the former, for sure. And there are definitely some contentious issues on why exactly this change was made. I will touch on it briefly, whether I thought it was a good change or a bad change, considering I didn't really touch on that last time. Whether it was necessary, I honestly think the Maddox was too strong of a gun overall. Like, it was really a do-it-all weapon, and I think in public matches it probably was a little bit strong. The way they have destroyed it is disappointing, I would say, and especially on the competitive side of things. I think most people and myself would agree that the meta we had in competitive was very good right now. Like the 2 Sorg, 2 Maddox, 1 ICR meta, I really enjoyed. Yes, the Maddox was a little bit too strong maybe in terms of public matches and stuff, but for competitive I thought it was perfectly fine, and it was a very fun gun to use, let's put it that way. So yeah, I'm disappointed in the change overall, and it's a big shame really that the game has to be completely relearned in terms of what new meta is going to come into play here in the next couple of weeks before Fort Worth, and we're already like, you know, 4 months into the game. So overall, I'm not happy with it, and I think that echoes the sentiment a lot of the professional and the competitive scene. So well, I'm sure you guys will leave your thoughts in the comment section below. So what will replace the Maddox? There's been a lot of questions, a lot of queries about what weapon may come into play to replace it. Now, as I said, it's possible the Maddox could stay in some format. I know that Bance was tweeting out that yesterday in scrims, people were using the GKS, the ICR, the Swordfish, the Sorg, the Vapor, the KN, and indeed the Maddox. So, you know, we'll have to see how it goes. But there's a couple of weapons that potentially could be viable right here, which I think deserve at least some mention. So the Rampart had its max damage range increased very slightly. I don't think that'll be a big enough difference to make that viable competitively. The KN apparently is potentially the one to consider here, because one thing we've got to say about the Vapor is that, okay, the Vapor is pretty damn good. It has a great 5-hit kill range, and yes, it's ADS. They made it sway a little bit less in its most recent patch, but it also has double stock. The issue is it doesn't have quick draw, and that was really the thing about the Maddox, is that you could run around with it and still engage in relatively close range combat. This Vapor will have a really hard time reacting to close range gunfights, and it honestly will be like, you'll have to play slower with it. So if anything, one of the Maddox players, if the Vapor is the most viable gun, one of the Maddox players might be replaced by a Sorg, and then the other Maddox player will go to a Vapor, and then we still have an ICR. But I very much doubt that it'll be a simple 2-for-2 swap here with the Vapor, because it really isn't as good as that close range, up in your face weapon that the Maddox could be. And it's difficult to say if there's any other AR that can really fulfill that role. The KN has been talked about, considering it has quick draw, grip, and stock. It also has a pretty decent max damage range of a 4-shot kill out to like 17 yards or something, which is very respectable indeed. I think the KN could be viable. It feels actually quite a lot like the Man of War. Even though the Rampart should be the Man of War weapon, the KN feels a little bit more like that. So I think either of those two guns would be viable. Of course, I'd be very interested to hear what you guys think might replace it down in the comment section below. Another gun that has been talked about significantly is the GKS, because this gun has double grip. It also has double long barrel, but the long barrel doesn't really do much as far as I can tell. So it starts with a 5-shot kill range. They increased the 5-shot kill range recently, so it's actually relatively decent out to, you know, at least 5 yards or something like that. It has 5-shot kill range. After that, it goes to a 6-shot kill, which, yeah, is not the best by any means, but it does have very low recoil. It can strafe very nicely, and some people are suggesting that maybe that will be a weapon that in mid-range combat will be able to replace the Maddox. So that's really what we're looking for here, is something that maybe it has a chance up close. You know, you can shoot someone once and still punch them point blank with the GKS, and at mid-range, maybe it will have an advantage over the Sorg or the ICR. It's yet to really be seen. Apart from that, the Swordfish also should deserve a mention here. They increased the ADS time, I think, and also they made it move faster while ADS, but it still doesn't have stock, which is the issue for me, because how can you get a gun to replace the Maddox, which is going to be great at close range, when it doesn't have stock? It's interesting. They also nerfed the stock on the Maddox as well, which is something to mention, and that thing goes, yeah, it's really slow right now. So yeah, maybe the Swordfish can replace the Maddox in that regard. Honestly, personally, I think that the Swordfish is better up close than it is at range. It gets outgunned by the ICR because of the flinch situation, but up close, the Swordfish can really put on a show. It's just the lack of stock, I think, is the issue right now with the Swordfish. People are suggesting it's pretty decent, but whether it will replace the Maddox in its full form, I doubt it. If anything, it may replace one of the Maddoxes, and then we'll have a Sorg instead of the other Maddox, which is kind of what I am presuming is going to happen. We're going to go to maybe even a 3 Sorg meta on a lot of these maps right here, which I don't know what you guys think about that. The MX9 is another gun that could be considered. This gun, of course, dominated the Black Ops 4 beta, but whether its 5-shot kill range that it's introducing up to 7.5 yards now is going to be enough to change the meta is doubtful. It did increase the ADS speed, so it's definitely better than it was. The issue was with the ADS speed is that it aimed in super slow, so even though it had stock and it had long barrel, it couldn't really compete with the Sorg, and it still can't compete with the Sorg up close. But as I say, we were looking for a Maddox replacement here, and it doesn't have much recoil. It has a decent 5-hit kill range. It's pretty good up close, has a relatively competitive time to kill within that range, so potentially viable. I'm not saying anything yet. It feels kind of like the CUDA to me. I kind of like it to some degree, but its iron sights are a little bit dodgy. So, well, we'll have to see exactly what happens with the MX9. I'll be really interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this in the comment section below. What you think will replace the Maddox, if anything. One thing to mention before we move on here is that the Auger is now super strong. The ABR also, I think, got a buff to some degree, but the problem is that the ABR cannot one burst, and that is the real issue for the ABR, because its time to kill is super slow, the fact that it can't one burst in 3 shots. The Auger, supposedly, though, is really, really good now. It can 2-shot kill out to some stupid range. Apparently, it's incredibly strong in public matches, which, well, it's arguably a bit of an issue. And yes, I very much doubt that will be used in competitive. I guess it is technically allowed, which may spell some issues for like game battles and the like. We'll have to see, but I'm sure the pros will not be too happy with that being in the game. We'll have to see, but I guess it will be gentleman's agreement if it is super strong. So now let's go on to the recap of yesterday's action. I'm just going to kind of whiz through this quicker than I normally would. The first match was Heretics versus Denial. So Heretics come out with a victory here, but Denial honestly put on a show on map number 1 frequency hardpoint, 250 to 115. Didn't really get much of a chance to watch this, but Heretics brought it back in the end, as you would expect. Battle of the 2 European teams in this division. And yeah, Heretics come out on top. Very impressive once again here. after that first victory. It was a little bit closer than I guess some people would be predicting, but Denial are a very solid squad and shouldn't be underestimated by any means. They're playing 100 Thieves tonight, and well, we'll have to see how that goes. These box scores are courtesy of EasyMac once again. I'll leave all the relevant links in the description box below if you want to go show him some love and see the box scores for the individual maps as well, because I'm overlooking that today. In the interest of time, Indy Vs Accelerate was, I guess, the upset of the day. Accelerate came out really strong map number 1, and yeah, we once again have this situation where one team dominates game 1, one team dominates game 4, and then it comes down to a map 5 search and destroy where Accelerate run away with it. BZ got a 5-piece in the very final round. Very impressive from Accelerate, and I guess Envy just not playing up to the caliber you would expect of them. Yeah, interesting indeed. Huke went off in the entirety of the series. Apathy had a really atrocious one, and well, I don't know what you guys think about Envy in their current state. If they continue this form over the next couple of days, we will have to see how many people are still predicting them going forward. Accelerate seemed pretty impressive, but yeah, Envy, not World Championship caliber by any means. Game number 3 was Enigma 6 versus E United, and yeah, E6 honestly ran away with this one. This was a comfortable series, an excellent bounce back from that Heretics loss, and I kind of rated Enigma 6 coming into the league here, but when I was thinking back to who they played up against at the Pro League qualifier, they beat FaZe, they beat Team Sween. The other teams they beat were not that impressive, you know, FaZe Black, like Teddy Rex's team. Pool A on the whole wasn't actually that good when you look back on it. So maybe Enigma 6, I shouldn't put as much stock into them as I kind of was. Against the United here, they really got outclassed. Look at the KDs on the side of E6. That is just absolute obliteration. Frosty and Kismet, the only shining lights, as it tends to be with this team. But yeah, United closed it out pretty comfortably. Once again, Arcities just absolutely dominates. 1.75. What is with this guy? And the final match of the day was 100 Thieves versus Splice. Splice crushed them. I legitimately felt that 100 Thieves played a very solid series. I wasn't displeased with how 100 Thieves played it particularly. I thought their hardpoint was pretty solid. They brought it back relatively nicely. Search and Destroy was decent as well, and in the control they had their chances, but Splice are so well coordinated right now. And I genuinely thought these guys would come out a little bit slow, kind of what, you know, I was looking at history and I was saying, okay, Optic lost their first match, LG lost their first match, E United lost their first match, so maybe the teams that came top 4, their first match back on LAN in a couple of months, they're going to come out a little bit slow, and I thought that 100 Thieves were good enough to maybe take Splice down, so that's why I predicted 100 Thieves on CoD Gamepedia, but yeah, I didn't even think 100 T played bad. Splice were just unbelievable this series. Their team play, the coordination, the composure and the clutch factor is something that I am amazed at on this team, and I legitimately think these guys will be contending for championships all year long, and I think they honestly, on this form, they're the closest competitor that Opta Gaming has right now, no questions in my mind, because they are an unbelievably well-rounded squad, and yeah, their composure is unbelievable. Whenever they go up in a map, excluding Seaside Hardpoint against Optic at Vegas, whenever they go up, you just never feel like they're going to lose it. You always feel like they're going to find a way to close it out. Happened in map 1, happened in map 2, and map number 3 as well. They had that gloriously executed play on the control where they trapped 100 Thieves into that A bomb site, and they got enough of a kill differential in their favour that they could easily close out the defensive round. Temp just dominated. Free dubs, free cash. These guys are trash. And yeah, fair play. Looney was unbelievable as well. Jerd did his job. Accra as well as a phenomenal AR, of course. And even though Accuracy had a really bad S&D by his standards, Splice was still able to close it out. And if that's the case, this team's incredibly scary. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Like if you did, subscribe if you're new. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.